Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to our BUSU Board of Director meeting for the month of September 2023. And here is our call to meeting at 6:05. I'll start with the land acknowledgement. Just give me a second. So we acknowledge the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe people, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nation Métis and Inuit people, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people. So moving on to agenda approval. Be it resolved that board approves the agenda for meeting 5. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Okay, Lena and Gabby, thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. So minutes approval, be it resolved that board approves 2 minutes from meeting 4. Any mover and seconder? Thank you, Lena and Gabby. Any opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. I'll move on to the session, in-camera session.
So be it resolved, board moves in camera up at 6:07. 7 p.m. We just need a mover, seconder.
Yeah, we need a mover and a seconder. Rajat and Israel. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Ritik and Israel. Any opposed? Abstention? Okay, thank you. So moving on to policy 605, motion to approve, be it resolved that board approves to the changes to policy 605. Can we have a mover and a seconder?
Yeah, it's okay. I'll share it on the screen. Okay. Is it shared on the screen? Can you see it? Yes. It is, okay. So just briefly, we updated our other committee policies last year when we did kind of the big haul of BUSU AC becoming a thing and rebranding from BUSAC. So this was one of the committee policies that we hadn't done yet. What we are proposing is that we increase the number of students who sit on CPC. CPC is going to be meeting twice a week for this year, which I think they met twice a week in previous years as well, because there's a lot that they go through. Yeah. I think they did at one point last year. Yeah, there's a lot of meetings, and we have even more clubs. So we are expecting even more club funding requests, which is a really good thing. But the time commitment becomes a lot when we meet twice a week. So we're recommending we have 10 members join through BUSU AC. We are recommending that our quorum remains at 4. So our quorum was 4 before. So we just want to have a bigger pool of students to be able to come to the meetings, so that in busy times during exam times, students are working, they can still continue to function, even though some students may have to drop off and not attend a few meetings. So
but all 10 will be invited, and believe the quorum would just be 4.
Yeah. And then the reporting structure, so we won't have them report to the BUSU AC, we'll have them come and present to the board of directors as needed. So that's kind of the change that we're proposing. And just one small word change down there about general operation and conduct of unified clubs.
The other thing I want to mention too is that, so you're the board, you're the governing structure. So CPC is actually a committee of you. So at the end of the day, if you don't like something that CPC does, you can intervene. If CPC has concerns, they come to you. So you are above CPC. So anything above like elections committee, it reports to the board. CPC, it reports to the board. So the board, as soon as the board makes a decision, the decision's made. There's no other opportunity for any appeal or anything of that nature. And we do have it from time to time. Things will come to the board through clubs where the clubs say, I don't like the decision that the CPC committee made. Once it comes to you, that's their opportunity for appeal. Once you make a decision, the decision's fine. Okay, so any decision you make in anything that you're doing has to have the opportunity for appeal. The people that made the decision, the committee that hears the appeal, they have to be different. So you cannot have anyone sit on a committee that heard the original request. Likewise, there may be something disciplinary in nature that goes to CPC or something disciplinary. So it's on the election committee. It has to then, if there has to be an opportunity for appeal, that is the judicial system. There has to be an opportunity for a hearing. There has to be an opportunity for an appeal. Every single system has to have both. You are the final authority, which is why you can't typically hear them first. That helps.
Yeah, that's a good explanation. Sorry, I'm changing to September 2020. Yeah, so happy to discuss, answer questions, talk about it.
Wait, so at the end of the day, like whatever decision we make, like once it's done, it's done. Like it cannot be undone.
But no, on this policy you're talking about?
Or just like with anything in general. Yes, unless you decide to revisit it. So last year we had an issue with the clubs where the club, this CPC made a decision and this person appealed the decision to the board. The board ended up actually giving this person a graver sanction problem. And then that was at the beginning of the.
It's almost like a year later.
At the end of the school year, they asked to appeal.
They asked for reconsideration.
Well, at first they asked for an appeal, and we essentially said, you know, you appealed the decision to begin with. But at the time I was the chair and I granted them the opportunity to come present. But I could have very well just told them no, but we let them present for reconsideration. So you can revisit, but you don't have to.
They're your fellow students, so you probably don't want to be a jerk toward them, right? That, I mean, that's what you, but ultimately, someone would hear something, you would hear any appeal that comes out of it, and I did see a question, so.
All right, can you just repeat it again? I kind of got confused. So they
Somebody got a sanction placed on them by CPC.
This might be a dumb question. What's the thing? What's the sanction?
Discipline.
Punishment,
Oh,
it's a bad word to use, but like,
Okay.
Yeah, and they appealed it to the board, and the board actually ended up giving them a graver punishment.
Like a more severe one.
Because we
Oh.
didn't think that actually what they got was severe enough. And then later on, so they appealed it and we made a decision. Later on, this person asked to appeal their appeal, which just isn't a thing.
Doesn't make sense.
Isn't a thing, so. Essentially, they were asking us to reconsider our decision. And we let the person come and present for reconsideration. We didn't grant them reconsideration, but we let them come and present, and we could have. Like reverted course, but I don't think that's really a good precedent to set, that you're kind of flimsy on your decisions. It's not like a very good thing to do. But yes, you can revisit a decision that is made, but you are the final authority and you can decide not to revisit something.
but you guys also revisited that almost a year later, so they had a whole year,
The whole school year.
the whole school year. Whereas if the individual came back right away and said they wanted to appeal, you would have just said no.
Denied.
Yeah.
Was the outcome any different?
No, we just said, no, we're not hearing you. We're sticking with
Oh,
our original decision.
And how, just for, because you may see one this year, how it typically works is what happens is someone from CPC comes forward and says, listen, we made the decision because of the following reason. And someone from the club would say, or the person that's been disciplined or sanctioned says, well, except you don't have this information. So that's the first round. The second round is they have the opportunity to rebut each other. So the one person says, well, you said this, but I don't agree with you. The other person says you have this opportunity and then both opportunity teams have the opportunity to summarize what they have. And then it's with you for a decision. As soon as the decision's made, it's over. Go ahead, Yanni.
That's the same process that we use in the election.
You got it.
It's the exact same for elections. Yeah. Are there any other questions?
Board governance. This is
I
great.
know, isn't it good?
And when you talk about court, for example, so Kaylee and I both come from law backgrounds. That's how everything is set up. There's an opportunity for an initial hearing, then there's a decision made, and there's always an opportunity for an appeal. And then there's a decision made, and the appeal is non-appealable.
I'm just curious.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, for
well,
sure.
you're here to learn, right?
Brielle, go ahead.
We used to have an appeals committee. I think that would be helpful, especially because I used to chair the appeals committee when we had it. That might be helpful if the board is dealing with other matters, having that committee that deals specifically with any appealing decisions.
So Brielle, when we actually went through the whole review of the governance of BUSU, what BUSU had done over a long period of time, we're almost 60 years old, we're 59 years old right now. And what we had actually done is we had taken the responsibilities of the board. So the board is the final authority. And we had actually delegated it to a committee of BUSAC, which is actually a delegation of the board. And that's illegal. So we cannot in any way, shape, or form do that. And we haven't been able to do that for over 20 years, but we did it anyway. And so that was something that we did. So the appeals committee was something that was created by BUSU at some point in time. I don't know the exact history of that. And so an appeals committee would not exist. There's 60,000 not-for-profit corporations in the province of Ontario. None of them would have an appeals board. The final appeal and the final authority rests always with the board of directors on any appeal. I'm sorry to sort of be harsh on that one, but we just cannot legally do that.
Perfect. Are there any other questions?
I was just gonna ask so I understand what you're saying, but we could also maybe have a committee of the board. That would be possible. It would not be like a separate BUSU appeals committee from BUSAC. So would that be an option?
So the board actually has to make a decision as a whole. So not any member or any committee can make a decision for the entire board. So the entire board, it can only make a decision. It can't be subbed out. So you cannot, what the actual rule is you cannot contract out, that's how it reads legally, an appeal decision from the board. You cannot task 3 members of the board, 4 members of the board, 6 members of the board. It must be made as the board as a whole, and the board must reach quorum. And those are requirements under the Corporations Act.
Okay, so the final decision would have to be by the board as a whole, totally understandable. Would the hearing then be like a subcommittee of the board?
No, the hearing would have to occur before all board members that can be present, and quorum must be reached. We don't have that many in a given year, but that is the requirements under the Corporations Act.
We had about 2 last year.
Yeah. There was,
It's not worth putting a committee.
yeah,
Oh, 2 appeals last year?
2 pieces.
Okay. Not worth
No, it's
it.
not worth it.
it's not very frequent.
No, it doesn't happen a ton, but
Was it 1 close 1?
well, even if you want to contemplate it, it's not
Yeah.
allowable. So
Okay. Perfect. Of
I'd like to add something.
course.
I feel that this change in policy actually makes sense. Because board of directors sitting on the same advisory committee, it means that we are coming to ourselves if there is an issue.
Mhm.
you got it.
So, yeah, it does not make sense if it was that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would really encourage everyone to come tomorrow if you're free to the advisory committee meeting, and we can probably introduce the board members quick if they're there.
One time,
It's at
three,
2 to
all
3.
all three from the floor. Come on, y'all are on the board.
I'll send it.
I know, I have.
I'll send it out to everyone, but yeah, if you can make it, you should come, and there's a lot of looking at the roster of students who've signed up, there's a lot of first year students, so I think encouraging them to kind of, it's just 3 times for the year. So September, December, March.
I'll be there in December.
Okay, but sorry, were there any other questions for CPC?
Be it resolved.
Sorry.
Sorry.
You said it's just for CPC, not any other committee then?
It's gonna be for CPC and it's gonna be for the elections committee,
Those are the two.
the only 2, yeah.
But we're still allowed to sit on like
The advisory committees, yes, because they're not hearing any appeals or
Any
anything,
appeals or
it's more of a sounding board for what the executives are looking for.
It's not like. there's no system
Yeah,
set
yeah.
up.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
sounds-
we'll talk about that in a sec a little bit more, but part of the advisory committee responsibilities is to go through the appointment process. So if you want to be president, you probably shouldn't
Shouldn't
sit
get
on
on.
James's. Just to keep in mind, but yeah,
Thank you. Kelly.
yeah, no problem. Okay, we're good.
Okay, be it resolved that board approves the changes to policy 605, clubs policy committee as presented. Can we have a mover and a seconder? Gabby and Lena, thank you. Any abstentions? Any opposed? Thank you.
Oops. And I'll share my screen one more time here. This one is pretty much the same. We did make the change from BUSAC to BUSU AC for the elections committee, but it was just an oversight. We missed removing the board of directors. So exactly same spiel that you guys just got for clubs policy committee. Elections is the other committee that you may hear appeals come to the board. And yeah, it again, like it used to happen a lot, it not so much lately. So we're hopeful that, you won't hear any appeals. But if it does happen, then they need a body to come and appeal to. So that's why this change is being made. And we do have fewer students that we elect onto the elections committee because they really don't meet very often. They'll meet usually once before each election period. So that's 2 meetings. And then just if anything comes up during the actual election cycle. So the time commitment on that one is very, very low. Yeah, I'm happy to. Any questions?
Speak to this.
Of course.
Because I was on the elections. And referendum committee
For a couple years, right?
couple years.
Yeah.
I was actually the chair, but, because we did have a lot of issues come up in the past where even if there were appeals, even coming to the board, like there was so much conflict of interest that it was impossible to do anything. So yeah, just saying that just was like almost necessary for us to run smoothly during elections.
Thank you for your service. It was a rough few years for Gabby. Okay, perfect. I will share the other screen again. Got too many screens open.
Still here to tell the tale.
I know.
Yeah. Last Wednesday. I think Alex was here.
Be it resolved that board approves the changes to policy 601, elections committee as presented. Can we have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Hinko and Israel. Any abstentions? Anybody opposed? Thank you.
So just the last part, as we were just talking about committees, so we have clubs policy, we have elections committee, and then we have 4 advisory committees to the executives. And they consist of a board member and 6 or 8 council members. Can't remember right now, but we'll go through it tomorrow. and elect everybody. So we're hoping to fill those seats. If, I know there was quite a few abstentions in the thing we discussed in camera. So if we can't make that work tonight, like we can always go to the meeting next month. I think 1 month without one board member on the committee, they'll still be okay. But yeah, basically it's however you guys want to do this. If it wants to be, if you guys want to do a vote, if you guys just want to have a discussion about, you know, why you'd like to sit on each of the committees.
I'll tell you right now that the President's Committee and the BPSS Committee, there probably won't be much happening right now. Obviously, we might have a lot on my plate, and I don't think I'll see what I can do, and I'll brainstorm what I can do with these committees. But for the time being, I don't think we'll be very busy. So, like Kaylee was saying, if one of them is empty, I don't think that will be much of a problem until the next board meeting. And I'm kind of mentioning this because I think it would be very logical if Alex were to be the person on the President's Committee. The other three, I think it doesn't really matter whoever's interested, but I think if everybody was in agreement, the chair being the board representative on the President's Committee, I think that would make a lot of sense. Obviously, he's not here right now. We would have to wait till the next meeting, but I just want to.
I think it makes sense.
I think it makes sense to wait, because I don't think a lot of us know if we're gonna be applying for any executive positions or
Yeah.
which ones.
Yeah.
Really. So yeah, maybe wait it out.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll give you just a little bit of information on 2 of the roles. So with respect to the VPEA role, certainly that is going to be something where Alyssa will come to you with things around BUSU papers and maybe CASA related items. So provincial, federal advocacy, I think that's where she's largely going to, you know, basically engage the students. Go ahead, Gabby.
With that, would people on that committee be the ones going to the GA or would that be?
That application actually opened today, so it's not exclusive to the committee members. I think they would be good candidates.
So the application opened today, and Alyssa's the one who chooses, so
Mhm.
obviously, the people on that committee, it's a good foot in the door, and Alyssa would know who they are. It's obviously a good thing for the person that's choosing. But I will say that, as I mentioned, the 2 that I will be taking care of, I have no clue what to do with them as of right now. Alyssa and Carly, they have their plans for it, and they're really like looking forward to it.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we need to.
Well, we can always just say if, well, maybe we do wait on those 2 if everyone kind of agrees. Then,
Yes.
yeah, unless there's somebody who really wants to be on UA or EA.
The other question I had was, you said we should avoid being on the committee at the position you want to possibly.
You will be, because the committee, we're gonna have to have board members participate in the hiring committees.
So. if you
So-
apply for that position, and you can't sit on the committee that you're sitting on. And you have to pull other people and haven't been sitting on the committee the entire year and
Yeah,
haven't been learning
That's like
about,
initiative.
Yeah,
haven't been learning about the position.
Yeah, but back to the USA GA role, I think that Alyssa's going to select people, but with that said, is that, you know, many of the people on BUSU AC are going to be much younger. And there is going to be people that, for example, have been members of various different clubs. Let's say, for example, any of the political party clubs on campus, or Model UN, or political science majors and things of that nature. And certainly someone in their 3rd or 4th year may have gained more experience than a person maybe only in their 1st year, but not necessarily exclusively that, right? With respect to Carly's role in the UA role, certainly she sits on Senate. So certainly people that are interested in learning about things that are going on at Senate and the internal things that we're advocating for Brock, that's kind of a good sort of position in that area. And then with respect to VPSS, when that is refunctioning again, it's certainly going to be events and clubs. And then the presidential position, I'm going to tell you the most part, it doesn't have as much. James is overseeing all of these things. And largely what James does is James has a little role in everything. So he is very, very wide, but less deep. Those roles are fairly deep, but hardly as wide. Okay.
it's a good visual.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you guys want to do? You want to talk about these? Do you want to wait?
I would say wait.
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait until. we're more
There's no
clear.
rush, and I mean, they're meant to be kind of like sounding boards. So like if Melissa has an idea, she has a group of students that she can go to run the idea off of and to get feedback. You guys kind of already know them, so if you have feedback for them, like you can always just go to them, right? So I don't think it's a bad thing if we wait a month.
We want the sticker first, you gotta take the sticker off.
Sorry, guys, I just realized that they got finger unlocked on this computer.
I'm just gonna strike through that. Maybe we should have a motion to table.
Yeah. I think so.
Motion to table. Also, up be it resolved that board tables the committee appointments until the October meeting. Okay. Can we do a mover second for that? Yeah. Let you pick.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, is everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Can
That-
pass it on to Robert now.
Yeah.
For the general manager report.
Perfect, thank you. So I've circulated a report, but I'll go over a few items. So item 2, Welcome Week, Badger Fest. So I thought that this particular Badger Fest was the best planned and overall best executed event that or Badger Fest in my 6 years. And I think largely it had to do with the fact that we planned in a much tighter time frame. So we actually had the whole thing planned by the end of May. So we started May 1st, had it planned by May 30th, and then we moved into actually putting all the pieces in place. I also think it was much more of an integrated effort with the entire staff to actually be involved in the execution plans. So what would happen in the past is that, you know, people would have to be at everything because we really didn't delegate things as well as we should have. And I think that went really well. Celine could spend some mornings at home. And, you know, then Ron could spend, you know, he'd work 2 days in a row, he could spend a day at home. And so as a result, no one really got cranky. And we were able to do quite a good job. So the opening event, the Glow Party, we had about 3,300 students at that. That was the most for an opening event that I've been part of. And certainly our AV people have been around 31 years now, and they don't remember anything larger. So I think that's really good about our engagement. So I wanted to sort of highlight that. And I wanted to sort of congratulate, you know, the whole events team on that. My next item that I sort of wanted to bring up for an update is waste sorting. So Kaylee and Dave have really taken a lead role on our sustainability. And we have now implemented waste sorting. So all of our waste in Union Station used to go into what we call totes. If there was a single can in there, it would go in the landfill. And so what's happening now is they're all going into bins. They go into the kitchen. They separate any cans from food waste, from napkins, and it all now is being diverted. So we have 100% diversion in those areas. So that's a really great accomplishment. And thank you. Yeah. With respect to hiring and onboarding, it's actually quite amazing. We go from a fairly small entity to a fairly large entity really quickly. So we actually hired over 100 students in the month of September and got them into their roles. That involves getting all of their information into payroll. It involves all the mandatory training and managed. And so I wanted to say sort of thanks to Kate for all of that work. It is a tremendous amount of work to get all those people hired and trained. Certainly in our businesses, you know, that we had a whole week of training and the food and beverage team did a great job in that area. With respect to food and beverage, we had a lot of things happen this summer, like a lot of things happened this summer, and everything opened on September 4th as it was supposed to. And certainly for your first week is always interesting because what we do is that's a little bit different is that every other business in the world would start with a team that is almost the same team. And what we do is we start with a whole bunch of students that maybe have never even worked in food and beverage or in retail or in advocacy or in events, and we teach them every year. And so that's something that is both challenging and rewarding. So we did a very, very good job of that this year. Our finance system, for those that have a business, any background in that area, our finance system now doesn't use paper anymore. So we actually, everything that we have now is scanned and stored, and we approve everything digitally. And we issued only 20% of the checks that we used to issue in our very first run through checks. So we've now actually eliminated 80% of our checks. And so we used to write over 100 every single week. And last time for a 2-week period of time, we signed about 20, less than 20. So that's actually gone very well as well. Our sustainable lighting project. So if you actually go into, for example, our offices area or in Isaac's here and you look at the lighting
in front of the bar.
Yeah. And then you go over to General Brock or in this room, the lighting is very different. And it's also way more efficient. And we also don't have to replace the bulbs quite as much. So Kaylee is certainly working on that project. And we have now GB and this area done. And we have one more hurdle up to get for Union Station, but that should be complete by the end of the fall. Now fall, when someone says fall in these roles, fall is December 22nd. So when I say fall, you might think October, but you see fall to people because then it's the end of December when fall actually ends, right? So new student space. So James and Carly and Andrea LePage and I had a meeting with the university. It was a very good meeting with the university about our new building. I would say that it was the most forceful meeting that we've had. Our job isn't to be jerks, that's not what we're trying to do, but we're looking to build new student space. And I think it was the most honest conversation we've had to date. We may need one more honest conversation, and I think we're going to move forward. I mean, you might comment on that now if you want to in terms of the meeting, but I think that that meeting went as well as any one we've had so far. Our position is that the students are telling us they need new space. They need space on campus for clubs just to sit down and chill, to group study. And the university, I don't know, believed us with that. They're like, well, no, there's all kinds of space on campus. That is not what our students are telling us. So again, I'm not a student on this campus. I am a student, but I'm not a student on this campus. But that is what our students seem to be telling us. Got a couple other items and I'll finish. In terms of social media, this has been a big, huge development over the last few years. So we actually now have 16,115 Instagram followers, which is more than the undergraduate students that we have. So our penetration rate, if we look at our followers on Instagram, we have a total students, including part-time and full-time students, of about 17,900. And we are now over 90% of actual participation rate on Instagram. Now, there might be some alumni, but there is for every other school. And if you look at the information that I circulated, we're at 90% now. Western's about 76%. And Queens, we often think about Queens being really student-centric, really student-centric, really student-centric. They have a 28.2% penetration rate. Okay, so we're getting to the students, they know what we're doing. They are participating in what we're doing, and we're even growing that number, which is good to see. Two other kind of quick updates. Niagara Transit, so we distributed about 8,800 transit stickers right now. And so that's how many we've distributed in the first 2 weeks. We will get up a little over 10,000 in the next 2 weeks now, but that's going to be going to the front desk as early as tomorrow. And in terms of Go Transit, I've been asked about Go Transit. We are continuing to work with Go Transit. Advocacy is interesting. It doesn't typically happen overnight. It is literally follow up and follow up and follow up and follow up, and we will. And so we will keep that on the basically having transit that runs a little bit later from a Go Transit perspective, so that someone could finish their last class at night and get on a Go Transit bus. My last sort of two pieces are around audited financial statements. So in our next meeting, you will receive audited financial statements. The auditor will be here, and our director of finance, Tan, will be here, and certainly James and Carly and I will be here. And really what it is, it's a look at what our finances look like last year. The audit is clean, so you don't have anything to really worry about. We actually have a small surplus in our budget, which is a good thing because we don't want to be running a deficit. And so that's what you will see, but you as a board need to approve any audited financial statements, so that will come to you. And then in terms of our health and dental plan, Our deadline for opting out, if anyone wants to opt out of health or dental, it's an option. You don't have to opt out of both, is September 30th. And then personally, I am taking 2 courses toward my master's degree in education at Wilfrid Laurier, and one in student affairs and one in mental health. And I'm actually living on campus. It's actually really fascinating. So I'm actually living Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in Lowenberger, and I'm living in the actual day stays there. And the room is 8 by 10, and I'm living there Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays so that I can actually study. So that's my report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. I highlighted them in advance.
I'll go fast.
We'll pass it on to Mr. President. James.
So. Short time since our last meeting compared to other meetings, so it's just 3 weeks since our last, well, less than 3 weeks actually. And one of those weeks, actually probably 8 or 9 days of that was Badger Fest. So we have all the events that happened. They're listed there. As Robert mentioned, ran really smoothly this year. Thank you to all the volunteers, especially some of you who helped out. I think Riddick was actually
Riddick was the man.
Was an unsung hero for the bus passes. He was there almost every day. So thank you to everyone who participated and all the staff. And then other welcome weekend orientation things, we helped with moving. Carly and I were at the international orientation. We had the off-campus living barbecue in Isaacs, and I gave a speech at the new student welcome and academic orientation. I also spoke at the Marilyn Walker orientation, and I spoke to game design students at their orientation. I didn't know that one was weird. If people invite me, I don't like to say no. They're giving the opportunity to hear about BUSU. I will be there.
Invite them to everything.
And then the last day of orientation, we Saturday, the executive team participated in Brock Cares. Carly and I went to Small Scale Farms, little farm in the world, and helped out a bit there. And Alyssa and Aisha went to the First Ontario Performing Arts Center downtown. I also gave a speech at the beginning of Brock Cares, and so did the mayor of St. Catharines and the mayor of Thorold. And Carly and I got to speak with them a little bit. And we've set up a meeting with Mayor Cisco, who we have yet to have a meeting with so far. And then this last week, we had poster fair, we had street fair, very successful events. We also brought over 200 students to a Blue Jays game, which went well. Dr. Rigg and Brad Clark accompanied us there. And then on Friday, I was invited by the Brock cricket team they had a friendly match against Niagara Regional Police. It was actually a really good picture that they showed me. They haven't posted it yet. It's me mid-swing. They invited me on the field to take a few pictures at the end. And then this past Saturday, I took the alumni recognition reception and the 25th and 50th year reunion celebrations, and I had the opportunity to meet, I think it was eight former BUSU executives, including 4 former BUSU presidents. So that was quite a cool experience. And then at the end, this is not chronological at all. Sorry, guys. At the end of Badger Fest, we had a breakfast with Dr. Rigg. As I had mentioned in my priorities for the year, it was to strengthen the relationship between BUSU and the Brock admin, and this is one of the steps we've taken. So we have a breakfast meeting planned with Dr. Rigg for a start of next term as well, and at the end of our terms, hopefully with our successors joining us as well at that last meeting in April. And then in terms of other meetings, we had a meeting with the GSA that was supposed to be both full teams. Unfortunately, the GSA has had a few resignations within their executive, and one of our executives wasn't able to make it. So our full team meeting ended up being half people. So there's that. And then we have continued, as I mentioned, to try and strengthen our relationship with the Brock admin. And also another priority of mine was to decolonize BUSU. So we finally had a meeting with Dr. Robin Bourgeois, who is the Vice Provost of Indigenous Engagement at Brock. And then we met with the Dean of Goodman, which was the last dean on our list for Carly and I. And we invited along the co-presidents of the Business Student Association, a former board director on our board, Hannah and Pratnik. And we met with ancillary services, ITS, campus safety services, SLS, SWAC, and the AVP for risk management. I also participated in the equity census focus group. So the Brock will be rolling out an equity census, I think next week. We just wanted some feedback on things to be included there. And as Robert mentioned, we had a really successful meeting with Brock for the new student center. But as Robert mentioned, there's also some other things that we still need to figure out there. But I think we're headed more in a straight path now than we were before.
Agreed.
And then in terms of CASA, kind of a light month for CASA. They know that all the students are busy with, all the delegates are busy with welcome week and things like that. So I attended only just one consultation session for their federal policy committee that I sit on. And then in terms of media on move-in day, I was basically, I don't know if it's the word trapped, but I was just pulled into an interview for CHCH. They only ended up using a really like short clip, like 2 seconds. But I did the interview for like a good 10 minutes. And then also Carly, Alyssa, and I were quoted in the St. Catherine's Standard. This was an article regarding the changes that Brock has made in terms of safety on campus following the attack at the University of Waterloo. And then last Wednesday, we had our first coffee and conversations. So these are our office hours. A priority for all of the executives this year was to bring back office hours. And this is just a more accessible and friendly way to hold them, also giving away free coffee and snacks to students. So I don't think it's a disadvantage on anyone. And then last week, we also participated in a volunteer fair. We were recruiting more members to BUSU AC. I don't know what's the number.
We're maxed out. No, I'm kidding. There's 87 people signed up.
87 people signed up.
Yeah, which is a lot.
Let's make it to.
It's good though.
Let's get 13 people tomorrow morning.
Yeah, everybody bring a couple.
Can we actually?
Sure.
Until the meeting starts?
Yeah. Yes. I sent an email to everyone who signed up today to let them know of like the date and the time and everything. So it is on our website, but if you do know people, just tell them like
That are on
whatever it
campus not
is.
doing anything, tell them to come.
The internal election is gonna be fun. There's gonna be like 20 people running for the same committee.
I know, I think so. We have to get through the updates pretty quickly because we have to
Yeah.
take time for the committee election.
We gotta hope the technology works too.
Yeah, we're also I'm gonna be running some new tech that I've never used before, so we'll see how that goes.
And then just prior to this meeting, it says Carly, because I thought Carly was gonna come. Carly wasn't feeling too well. So Alyssa and I attended a ceremony for the International Day of Action to search the landfills hosted by Aviat Genhas, the First Nations Métis Student Center, the Office of Vice Provost, Indigenous Engagement, and the Strong Water Singers. So that was it was a very cool show that they put on. It was the Strong Water Singers doing a lot of songs and drumming. And then, of course, just your typical Brock TV and marketing videos. I know Alex, he sent me the parkour video, and he said that is his favorite BUSU video ever. And then Robert's actual favorite video ever also happened within the past month, the popcorn suit video for movie night.
It's really good.
And then as Robert's in 2 courses, I'm also in 2 courses for my political science degree. So Education 3F90 is a new course for the BUSU executives to take as an independent study within our roles, and it's overseen by the Vice Provost of Teaching and Learning, Dr. Rajiv Jamgiani. And then I'm also taking one actual course in person. It's political science 4P50, the machinery of government. Might sound boring to you, but I think it's really cool. And then in terms of the vice presidents, so the VPA, of course, everyone's been up to Badger Fest and some welcome week and orientation things as well, and then other events. And then in terms of BUSA, which is the main responsibility of the VPA, BUSA came to community fair on the first day, and they set up a table. And the next day, let's turn it into an advocacy table. Gabby helped out. Charlie also helped out as former BUSA delegates. So thank you for that. And then also just writing her policy papers for the year. also participated in the CASA consultation session that I had mentioned and attended many of the Brock meetings that we've had. And other things that I've already mentioned she was included in. And then also Alyssa attended a workshop for engaging with Indigenous and diverse student populations and a politics in the class webinar. And then to Carly, we've mentioned bus stickers. Carly has been living, breathing, and eating stickers. And of course, as I mentioned, everybody's been to a few events. And in terms of Senate, she's had some committee meetings and she's met with the student senators. Every Brock meeting that I listed on my list, Carly had actually attended as well. And then also there's been some planning for a pop-up food market that is going to happen. It's going to be fresh produce food market in Advocacy Corner. Pretty sure this is happening next week, right?
Correct.
And it's going to be a pay-as-you-can model. So students that might not be able to afford food right now can take some, and hopefully some professors that, you know, maybe have some more disposable income can come and buy one apple for $20. hopefully that works. And then in terms of the BPSS, of course, Badger Fest and other events, and then some Brock meetings, event planning. There has been a club's president's meeting. Maybe some of you have attended, in a club's treasurer training that maybe also some of you, I'm not sure about that, and maybe the treasurers with the clubs may have attended, and also benefit from that.
Good. We don't have any round table. Does anyone have anything to share?
I have a question. Had to do with like Badger Fest kind of, but people are asking me, was this Lines like the big ticket concert? Is that what it was? Or like, are we doing something else?
You
Like,
want to go? You want me to go? What do you want to do?
So I personally had looked into a lot of different ways as to how concert could be incorporated, but to be able to maintain the level of events that were held last year, we would have to have a significant amount more money. So last year there was leftover money from the previous 2 years due to COVID. It wasn't able to be spent because of COVID and restrictions. And as a not-for-profit, we take money and we got to spend it. So once we were able to spend it, we had to spend it. We couldn't really divide it over the next few years to even it out. And unfortunately, Robert has mentioned this to me, but this year we have the second most money we have ever had for events, which would be second to only last year. But the only problem is that this year, in comparison to a year before COVID, artists were not performing for quite some time, so their prices have exponentially increased because they are trying to make up for that lost time. We can no longer afford people of the level that we have used to. So in short, technically, yes, that was it. We've looked at other ways that maybe we could somewhat incorporate a concert. I'm sure you guys have seen that the nightclub in St. Catharines, Nitro, was having a concert. They had reached out to me for certain ways to collaborate on that. We've looked into insurance surrounding that. That's potentially a possibility of something there that could benefit students. But you know, we will not be having another concert of the sort. We've looked at other ways maybe in the future to possibly be able to do the level that we had last year, which would potentially be running a referendum to increase the engagement fee. But then again, we are in a cost of living and affordability crisis, so asking more students for money for something that's nice to have, but that's not necessarily a necessity. It's something that we do need to evaluate and see if that's really worth putting that referendum to students. But
Yeah, I'll give you real numbers. Okay, so Sway Lee last year Okay, pretty big artist, but not the biggest artist, right? But a big artist, right? $183,000 Canadian. Okay, the tech, so the staging, the lighting, the sound, $100,000. Okay, the Meridian Center, the ushers, the security, everything to do with the actual facility, $100,000. Wow. So almost $400,000 for the Meridian Center event last year. Now, not a problem with that because quite frankly, we want, like with the students that pay it, you want to give it back to those students. You don't want to just hold it in reserves. You want to spend it. So the students didn't get to do anything for 2 years. So certainly we spent it and we tried to return the money to the students that were there. Like if a person was in first year, they had suck year, we delivered something really cool. But to do that, Yasmin's total budget last year was about $900,000. Okay. And this year it's about $500,000, which is what a normal budget would look like. Now, there are different ways of doing that, and certainly something we're more than exploring, but that is just to give you an idea of what that looks like.
What about the tickets? How much did we make from the tickets? Was it anywhere close?
So the tickets paid for, with the exception, so all the tickets that we sold paid for the Meridian Center, but we still owe the Meridian Center about $3,500.
So like 70,000.
So for example.
Oh, no, only between 3,000 and 4,000. So we actually did $97,000 in ticket revenue.
So for example, BOD was here in my first year and he cost at the time $75,000.
Correct.
And that was at that artist's peak. This artist is no longer as prominent as he was at the time, and he costs double the.
He's about 183,000 now too. So it's all in American dollars. So someone like A Boogie right now is about 150,000 USD.
And at the time when he was at his peak, it was 75. So that's shows you how the prices to artists.
When we brought Nav here, Nav was about 40,000. Right.
Mentioning all the good artists. So
Yeah, we were
I
there.
wish I was there.
So it's something that so the reality of the situation is on a go forward basis, if that's an area we want to go, the student was very accustomed to paying $20-25 for a big concert. Certainly, if you're going to go see someone like, for example, someone like Sway Lee in Toronto, you're going to pay $75 to $100. Now, will the student here pay $75 to $100? Probably not. But will they pay $60? Will they pay $55? I don't know. That's the interesting question, right? Because we would have to have a certain number of people do that to basically make it work, right? So that is how that is something we need to explore, and we might have to just try it once or twice and there'll be some risk. Like it might be, okay, well, we might lose money on this, but will we risk it? I can't do that alone. We would have to make that decision. But that's kind of where we are in this whole thing. And if you're ever interested, we do have all kinds of like rate sheets and stuff, so you can find out how much your favorite artist costs.
Anything else? I just wanted to remind everyone that the election nominations open on Monday. So we are filling one board seat, James's seat that he gave up when he became president.
Hashtag fill my seat.
Fill his seat. And we also have two, so that's a 1-year seat, and then we have 2 vacant Senate seats that are also 1-year seats that we're looking to fill. So if you know anybody, one's Carly's, yeah, and then we had a resignation. If you know anyone who you think would be really great on Senate, who would be really great on board, please encourage them to run. We are switching some things up with our election this year. We're going to try to go a lot more back in person to campaigning in the hallways, doing a lot more classroom talks. Our marketing team has a lot of plans for being present in the hallway. So starting Monday, there'll be a nomination package at the BUSU front desk that the students can come and pick up and fill out and get their signatures and hand back in. They've got 2 weeks to do it, so hopefully lots of time. But there's some content that's starting to go out, physical signatures. So go talk to everybody, 100 of them, yeah. It's only 25 for Senate. Yeah, it's 25 for Senate and 100 for board. So there'll be 2 separate package. See,
Yeah, 100 is easy.
And just like 100, and that's 100 people who are gonna know about the election. So
Yeah.
encourage everyone that you think would be good to run. And if that's the case, if you know someone who's abroad, like we'll have an electronic package that we'll give out, but we're gonna encourage students to actually go and talk to other students. Oh, that's right.
Sixth floor library. One night.
Wait, so this election is for this year or is it October?
For this school year, and all these seats that are up for election will expire at the end.
Of the, okay.
Yeah.
And this election will be done in October?
Yeah, complete terms that I've already done.
Okay.
They're not like fresh.
Yeah, the October election's always just filling in the vacancies, so
So it's only.
we don't expect to have,
April 2023.
we don't usually have a lot of candidates because there's not a lot of positions, so we want to make sure that we still have people running for. I hope it's competitive. I would love for it to be competitive. We're also running the BUSU referendum as
For
well.
one seat?
Let's get a few candidates.
Okay.
It's gonna be,
We already know one person.
yeah, it's gonna be our, yeah, that's true. It's gonna be our first year using our website's voting software too, which is exciting and a little bit unnerving because haven't done it yet, so but it's really exciting. It's got a lot of new features. It's gonna be the same thing though. You're gonna get an email, you click the link and you get to vote, but it's gonna be on our website and it's gonna look like our website, so yeah, it's my only reminder.
2 items. So one, James may have mentioned of a couple things. So number one is if you're looking at being an executive, there are a couple academic options that are brand new for you. And I want to make you aware of them. So number one is that BUSU is now eligible for co-op. So you could actually do a co-op placement at BUSU and get credit for it like you can anything else. So that's an option. And then I'm gonna have to go to my right a little bit. What is the name of the course? It can be taken as an elective.
Education 3F90. Well, it can be taken as an elective if you have education.
Yes.
But if it, well, you can take it and work it into your degree as however you can. Luckily, I had one full credit of elective that is the second year and above left, so it worked out perfectly for me. I don't know what this church is doing.
Yeah, the church has started practicing.
But it's an independent study. It's an education credit because Rajiv, who is the one who basically facilitated it and got it to be a thing for us, can only teach in education. So that's how we kind of convinced the people that he needed to convince to allow it to be a thing. And he'll be like, I'll take care of it when I'm not gonna put it on anyone. That's why it's education. I'm not, because it would kind of make more sense to be poli-sci, probably. That's why it's education. It's an independent study. We have this year, we have for the first time, we're gonna have 3 evaluation components. So there's gonna be a last thing is a reflection, there's a literary review. There's another one.
There's like a project too that you had to write, wasn't there?
I don't know, but there's another one, and it's an option that if you're an executive and you haven't finished, you can do it. It's not mandatory. If you are still a student and you're an executive, you don't have to take it. It's a slight bit more work than you would without taking a course.
And my last thing is for those that are interested in being an executive, they're setting a very high bar. So if you're looking to apply, this bar is pretty high now. So just want to let you know that as well. So, and my final piece is if anyone wants to actually see the concert budget, I actually opened it if you want to see it at the end of the meeting. So.
Hey, I think we're good. We just need a mover to adjourn.
So a mover, just a mover, right?
Just one, yeah.
Okay. Gabby, thank you.